Part 2 of the chapter, Sleep and Performance, from the book Rhythms of Life, The Biological Clocks That Control the Daily Lives of Everything, by Russell G. Foster and Leon Kreitzman. I'll start from the paragraph that we left in part 1. Sleep moves progressively through 4 recognized stages into deep slow wave sleep. However, after approximately 70 minutes, the sleep state reverses and stage 4 sleep moves rapidly to stage 3, then 2, then 1. Yet at the beginning of the night, an individual does not normally wake up at this point but passes into another state of sleep. In this state, the EEG is very similar to that in the awake brain, with high frequency and low amplitude electrical activity. But the individual is not awake, the eyelids are shut, but the eyes start to move rapidly. Heart rate and blood pressure increase, and the body is held almost completely still. This is called rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep. After some minutes of REM sleep, there is a switch back to non-rapid eye movement, or on NREM sleep. The individual will pass down through stages 1 to 4 and then back to REM sleep once again. The cycling of NREM and REM sleep lasts approximately 90 minutes, and in an average night we may experience 5 of these NREM/REM sleep cycles. These cycles are not identical. The first part of the night is characterized by the occurrence of deep slow wave NREM sleep, stages 3 and 4, and in the second part of the night we undergo more frequent and longer episodes of REM sleep. We usually wake naturally for REM sleep. Dreams are most frequently remembered when an individual is woken from REM sleep, but can also occur during the different stages of NREM sleep. For centuries, sleep has been regarded as a simple suspension of activity. Today, we appreciate that it's a complex and highly organized series of physiological states. But to what end? As yet, nobody knows why we sleep, but there is no dispute that sleep is essential to well-being. For reasons that are not at all clear, rats deprived of sleep die between 14 and 40 days of deprivation. There have been instances of human sufferers of familial, fatal insomnia who are unable to sleep and who also die. FFI is a very rare disease occurring in perhaps 20 or so families worldwide. One type is associated with a defect in a prion protein that, when triggered, is invariably fatal after about 6 to 30 months without sleep. The pathological processes include degeneration of the thalamus and other brain areas, overactivity of the sympathetic nervous system, hypertension, fever, tremors, stupor, weight loss, and disruption of the body's endocrine systems. While the effects of sleep deprivation may be known, there is no consensus as to how much sleep we actually need. A much touted American study of over 1 million adults found that subjects sleeping less than 4 hours a night were associated with an increased death rate. Those who slept 7 hours a night had the best survival rates, taking into consideration such variables as age, diet, exercise, previous health problems, and known risk factors such as smoking. According to the report, the group sleeping 8 hours or more a night were 12% more likely to die over the course of the study than were those sleeping 7 hours a night. Quite what to make of this is not clear, as it is probable that even in this controlled study, at least some of those sleeping 8 hours or more may well have had an ongoing disease. One result could be that the increased sleep is a reflection of comorbidity. When you're not well, you sleep longer anyway. Although the finding of a detrimental effect of more than 8 hours sleep is controversial, it does seem that on average adults need about 6 to 7 hours sleep a night to be well rested and fully functional. Reducing nocturnal sleep by as little as 1 hour increases physiological sleepiness the next day. But we can manage on less, and rule of thumb advice is that if you are not falling asleep in the middle of the day, then you are probably getting enough sleep. However, the effects of successive nights of reduced sleep accumulate. If you need 7 hours of sleep a night, and through the working week, you only average 6 hours. Then by Friday, you are 4 hours in debt. As a consequence, by Friday, you will be sleepier and functioning more slowly and less reliably than on Monday. Your mood may also become more irritable and negative. A sleep camel is a person who makes a habit of getting little sleep during the week and tries to make up for it by napping and sleeping it over the weekend. It's a hopeless task, according to David Dinges at the University of Pennsylvania. He makes the point that 2, 3, or possibly even 4 or more nights of oversleeping may be required to reduce the sleep debt to 0 and recover the waking alertness degraded by that debt. The trouble comes when an increasing sleep debt conflicts with the circadian sleep-wake rhythm, and tired as you are, sleep does not come easily. A wild Friday night out may end at 5 in the morning with you tucked up in bed, but the chances are that after 4 or 5 hours of poor quality sleep, you will be awake and unable to get back to sleep. There's a conflict between the sleep drive that wants you to recoup the sleep debt and the circadian rhythm that is saying, metaphorically, of course, hey, get up, it is daytime and you should be out and about. Building on the work of Alex Borbely, William Dement, a one-time student of Kreitzman, has suggested that sleep is generated by 2 broadly opposing mechanisms. There is a circadian-driven rhythm for wakefulness that promotes wakefulness throughout the day and then decreases the drive for wakefulness during the sleep phase. This is opposed by what has been described as a homeostatic drive for sleep. The homeostatic drive describes an intuitive process whereby the drive for sleep increases the longer an individual has been awake. These 2 processes interact to consolidate sleep. In Dement's words, push and pull of these opposing processes allows us to stay up all night and sleep all night. Homeostasis maintains the duration and intensity of sleep, while the circadian rhythm determines the timing of the propensity to sleep. Dement suggests that in effect we have a metaphorical accountant inside us meticulously keeping a record of how much sleep we have had in the preceding period and how far short of the desirable norm we are. When our sleep debt is 0, we wake, but on awakening we immediately begin accumulating a sleep debt that pushes us towards sleep. Opposed to this sleep tendency is what he calls clock-dependent alerting. This is the circadian rhythm that pushes us to wakefulness during the day but is inactive at night. In the first few hours after awakening, our sleep debt is very low and so is our sleep drive. At this time, the circadian drive for wakefulness does not have to be very strong to keep us alert. As the day progresses, the result of the tension between the drives is a biphasic pattern of daytime alertness in humans, with a midday dip in alertness occurring in the mid-afternoon. Whereas many societies used to allow a daytime nap or siesta, our modern globalized society increasingly forces us to use other behavioral or pharmacological measures to get us through this down period. A jog, a blast of fresh air, a cup of coffee latte with a double shot of caffeine is our siesta substitute. By late afternoon, the circadian wakefulness drive is in full swing. This keeps us going against the rising sleep debt at 10 p.m. We are surprisingly alert, even more so than earlier in the day, despite having been awake longer. In the absence of the circadian component after an SCN lesion, for example, sleep will still occur, but it becomes highly fragmented and is expressed as a continuous series of relatively short sleep episodes that are promoted by the homeostatic drive alone. Dirk Jan Dijk, a sleep researcher now at the University of Surrey, explains the functional significance of the process by providing a drive for wakefulness which becomes progressively stronger in the course of the waking day. The circadian pacemaker counteracts the progressive drive for sleep associated with sustained wakefulness. I repeat, Dirk Jan Dijk, a sleep researcher now at the University of Surrey, explains the functional significance of the process by providing a drive for wakefulness, which becomes progressively stronger in the course of the waking day. The circadian pacemaker counteracts the progressive drive for sleep associated with sustained wakefulness. Ditch has suggested that the SCN may not only promote wakefulness during the day but may also actively promote sleep at night, thereby explaining nocturnal sleep maintenance. After all, most of us will have satisfied the sleep deficit by about 3 or 4 a.m., yet we sleep through to 7 a.m. or later. The progressive increase in the circadian drive for sleep in the course of the nocturnal sleep episode counteracts the dissipation of sleep drive associated with consolidated sleep. The opponent process model put forward by Dement and Dale Edgar is a development of an earlier model that suggests that although alertness was once thought to be a cognitive choice, the need for sleep is in fact a biological drive. Dissecting out the relative contributions of the sleep drive and circadian wakefulness drive involve subjecting human subjects to artificial sleep-wake periods. Human subjects were put in bed and allowed to sleep for only 1 hour out of every 3 for several days around the clock. Despite severe sleep deprivation accumulating over several days, subjects were still unable to sleep during the periods in the afternoon and evening that coincided with the peak of the circadian cycle, when they would normally be awake. Everybody has an individual profile or chronotype that describes their rhythmic behavior over 24 hours. The profile will vary from individual to individual. Some people are larks and are most active in the morning, whereas the owls prefer later in the day. Larks tend to be older. College students and 20-somethings are notorious owls. Larks are most aware around noon, work best in the late mornings, and are chatty, friendly, and pleasant from about 9 a.m. to around 4 p.m. Owls, on the other hand, do not really get going until the afternoon or at their most pleasant, if that's not an oxymoronic term for college students, later in the day and are at their most alert about 6 p.m. Perhaps 1 in 10 of us are what is known as extreme larks, and another 1 in 10 are extreme owls. In their book on the effects of the body clock on human health, Michael Smolensky and Lynn Lamberg describe as hummingbirds the 80% who are neither extreme larks nor extreme owls but are somewhere in between. Early rising larks have usually adopted a smug moral superiority based on Benjamin Franklin's maxim, early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, but there is no basis for the claim. Catherine Gale and Christopher Martin of Southampton University followed up a 1973 survey that had included data on sleeping habits. More than 20 years later, they found no evidence among the survivors that following Franklin's advice about going to bed and getting up early was associated with any health, socioeconomic, or cognitive advantage. If anything, owls were wealthier than larks, though there was no difference in their health or wisdom. In a wry aside, they offer the thought, quote, "It seems that owls need not worry that their way of life carries adverse consequences. However, those who cite Franklin's maxim to encourage their children to go to bed early may wish to consider whether their practice is entirely ethical." End quote. Morningness is less a matter of choice than it is of genetics. Being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed first thing in the morning and raring to go is not just a case of how much sleep someone has had, nor is it a reflection of willpower. The genes may largely determine it. Louis Ptacek and colleagues at the University of Utah studied 29 people in 3 families with familial advanced sleep phase syndrome, FASPS. One family included a grandmother, daughter, and grandchild, all with the same sleep disturbance. Those with the disorder have a shorter than normal wake-sleep cycle. Regardless of work schedules or social pressures, they cannot stay up much later than 7:30 p.m. and they tend to wake up around 3:30 a.m. End of part 2.